Welcome everyone to the 2023 North Bristol Art Trail and to this particular venue hosted by the artist Jane Speedy. Jane will be donating sales profits from this weekend to Bristol Refugee Rights, a local charitable organisation that welcomes asylum seekers and refugees here in Bristol, providing them with friendship, information, support and advocacy. And if any of you want to know more about the organisation, there are information leaflets over at the shop. Now, this spoken word presentation explores the themes of enforced exile, displacement, and the seeking of safe refuge through the medium of poetry. Some poems reference historical trauma, while others focus on the devastating impact upon those affected by more recent events at home and abroad. My name is Sarah Nymanhall, and I'm a third-generation descendant of Jewish refugees from Poland and Ukraine. And I shall be reading a number of my own poems together with a selection of work by fellow poets, most of whom, together with myself and others, contributed to an anthology entitled Poetry and Settled Status for All, edited by Ambrose Muze and published in 2022 by CivicLeicester. And if, following the readings, you might be interested in the anthology, there are copies available at the shop, along with Jane's beautiful cards and prints. Oh, and just to say, if you do feel the urge to applaud, and, well, I hope that what you're about to hear moves you to do so, can you please hold back until the very end of the programme? Thank you. Although the first two poems I'm going to present describe events and experiences centuries apart, they are inextricably linked through the legacy of empire and the transatlantic slave trade. The first, Guinea Street, is a poem of mine, and the second poem is by Sandra Agard, entitled Come, Let Me Tell You a Story. Now, Sandra was born in London of Guyanese parents, and she's been a professional storyteller, historian and literary consultant for over 40 years, with many, many publications to her name. Guinea Street. Bristol's Guinea Street down by the docks was once trodden by the feet of Edmund Saunders and of Joseph Holbrook. Their houses hewn from local rocks rise 5 tall giddy stories to the heights, propped up by twisted pillars of society, constructed from the thick, congealed hot blood, cold sweat, and bitter tears of slavery. No signs of beauty, honour, or of bravery reside within the walls of this stern stone, for they are brittle, soulless creatures, symbols of their owners' callous greed, money manufactured from their need to put a price on human muscle, flesh and bone. The famous guinea coin, created here in Bristol by the RAC, not the one that rescues cars, the one that cut deep everlasting scars upon the soul of a dismembered people. The Royal African Company, quite a respectable sounding name, but history tells us of its shame. The traders called it Guinea, that western part of Africa where human beings were stripped of dignity, identity and name, torn from their homes and ancient roots to be transported to a life of hell. Yet even though, eventually, the bell tolled noisily, relentlessly, to bring the awful business to an end, so very many generations later, weeping scars beneath the surface yearn to mend. Come, Let Me Tell You a Story by Sandra Agard. Come, let me tell you a story of dreams, hopes and futures cut and tossed in the wind as a hostile environment ripped through pasts, presents and futures, weaving doubt, hatred, pain, suffering. Fear slithering its way into homes of those who thought they were safe and free in their motherland. Free no more, as lives were picked, prodded and probed, left to pick up the pieces of shattered lives. Their existence now questioned, queried, quizzed, interrogated. Come, let me tell you a story where one's life was made difficult by the denial of dignity and humanity by successive British governments, where the lack of the right document was seen as just cause to deny one everything that makes life bearable, passable, livable. Words like fairness, justice, and trust no longer applied. Come, let me tell you a story of a people who left sun-kissed islands in search of golden pavements, only to be betrayed by this hostile environment so cruel and unjust. Children who came on their parents' British passports, stamped with hypocrisy and lies. Children, now adults, who were asked to look for dusty ancient school records lost in time. Children, now with families of their own, ripped from jobs, homes and lives, only to be locked away in grim detention centres awaiting fate. Children, now adults, who could not return to bury their elders in those sun-kissed islands left so long ago. Children who became adults, now sadly passed away, their call for justice unanswered. Come, let me tell you a story of a generation betrayed by fake apologies, their songs of freedom stifled and silenced, their truths crushed, scattered, hidden and ignored. Come, listen to my story, for it is long and must be told. Are you sitting comfortably? Once upon a time, many moons ago, ships called Ormond and Windrush brought hope seekers onto these shores. Come, let me tell you their story. The next two poems are of personal significance to me and are very much linked to each other by historical and current events and experiences. The first of these two poems is called For the Children's Sake. How did you do it? You know, gather your guts together. Pack up the lives you knew and leave the country of your birth to grieve for your remembered history in that place. This will always be your mystery that I never solve, because I'll never meet you face to face or hear your answer from the grave. But that won't stop me marvelling at your bravery and wondering how hard it is to leave so much behind. Your friends, your home, your village, your country, your life as you know it. With tears in your eyes and pain in your heart, souls shriveled by fear, but you can't show it. For the children's sake, you must stand tall. For the children's sake, you must look strong. Even in those fleeting moments when you wonder if you've made the wrong choice that could tear your family's life apart. Yet when your children start to cry, you make yourself remember why it is you have to leave. And so you grieve in secret and in silence. It is an all-embracing family affair, not one member left there to perish or yearn. It is a journey of no return. You keep your sense of home afloat by everyone boarding the boat to somewhere. Nothing but sea and sky to stare into. your skin stung by the salt-filled air. Who knows how you ended up in Leeds after such a journey from the known to the unknown? Yours was escape from the shtetls of Kiev to the back-to-back slums of the Leylands. In England's industrial north, where those tall brick chimneys belched forth thick smoke that darkened even the sky of a summer's day. But who cares? You got away from the stench of death. Despite the hardship and stress of it all, you started afresh, rekindled, renewed, rebuilt a sense of home in this place that at first felt unknown. You claimed a new life with your hope for the future and memories of your history. I speak to you from that hopeful future, since you are a precious part of my history. This next poem was inspired by a wonderful concert performed by Christina Macca, an opera singer who, with her children, fled to Wales as a refugee from the atrocities of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The concert took place at Rhosygilwen in Pembrokeshire during August 2022. And the meaning of the Slavic surname Macca is blessed. Blessed. Christina Macca, what a cracker of a voice you do possess. Yet if you had the choice, I'd guess you would prefer to be back home than here alone in friendly Wales. But then you have 2 sons, who may well be the ones for whom you seek safe haven. The gift you blessed us with last night was more than just the songs you sang. Each devastatingly clear note rang out and loud to us and brought a tear to all our eyes, because, my dear, we realised that such deep yearning clung to every breath you took. And in that moment when you looked towards me, well, I felt as though you'd pierced my soul, and I could truly feel the all-embracing grief of exile. The loss of everything that means so much. Your homeland, now too far away to touch. The anguish in your voice brought home to me the sense of loss felt by my mother's family so many years ago when they escaped Ukraine. And sadly, dear Christina, here we are again. The dust of strangers' kindness sprinkled on a sad and aching heart may lighten up those odd, brief moments when you start to feel that you are part of this unreal and somewhat alien land. And so, from desolation, some small gem of hope could well be born. The hope that there's a future to embrace in your home country when its war-torn scars of violence start to heal and peace at last comes to you all. Or that your life in this strange place of refuge could well prove to be both blessed and real. The next selection of poems describes in moving detail people's emotional responses to the lived experience of displacement, migration, alienation, and memories of home. Orphee Kashala is a creative producer, curator, and writer based in Leicester, originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo. His recent creative work highlights thoughts, feelings, and emotions of refugees and migrants in the UK. Before I Die, by Orphee Kashala. I can see the flames where the future lies, how it burns, how it hurts, and I cannot wait. I can see through the smoke what I cannot say, but I want nonetheless to take a chance today, to feel the warmth before the burn, to see the sun before it sets, to see the skies before it rains, to feel alive before I die. And if I make it out, I will not be the same. My scars alone will tell the tale. They'll show the world what I couldn't say. If you stitch it with gold, is it worth the pain? Aryan Ashory is a young Afghan poet, filmmaker, human rights activist and journalist. And she wrote this poem at the age of 17. My God, by Aryan Ashory. Until when must I see my Kabul wandering the corners of other countries? Until when must mothers lose themselves wandering in forests and on boats? Where is the milk for this newborn to drink? Where is the walking stick for the old men? My God, see how they have strewn my country to the four corners of the world. Like this, they propel us outside. Like this, a mother weeps for her lost darling and children. The children of my land have never tasted the meaning of childhood. This country makes them regret they were ever born. Their eyes have not seen welcome. Muge Ozbay is originally from Istanbul and lives in London, having studied literature, art and visual cultures in both cities. What Remains by Muge Ozbay. I touch my bones to feel the strength of my ancestors. I breathe to create space for my heart. What remains when everything that made you is lost? Does one have to forget everything? Sometimes, out of the blue, the remembrance of the smell of toasted bread for breakfast and the laid-back hug of a lover fill me with the sensation of being at home, that welcoming feeling of the simple flow of days. Evicted, homeless, a husk of myself, a walker in the streets, starving, but light-headed, I evaporate into the city, diffuse like light. Walking, I kiss the earth and the pavements with light feet. I touch this land lightly, like a shadow. My body becomes the streets and forests of London, the ground we share, the ground to rise and stand. And there is always the sky. Saffana al-Jbawi is originally from Syria, and as well as writing haunting poetry, works as a translator of children's stories into Arabic. Under the Jasmin Tree by Saffana al-Jbawi. Do not think I came from the past, or that I do not have an education, history, or heart. Do not look at me as if I am an insect or a rat. I did not come to stand in a queue for food and clothes, maybe old, maybe new. There, I had a lovely house with a garden, and lots of friends. My students, books, brothers and sisters, all of them I lost. All of them I miss. 2 things I brought: my children and my coat. I do not want a flat or flute, some meat or fruit. There, under the jasmine tree, I buried our stories, tears, smiles, and memories, for fear they would be stolen like our dreams. There, on the balcony of my house, I left a cup of coffee and conversation with neighbours. On the tray, there were some of the jasmine flowers, contaminated by the smell of gunpowder. My children's clothes are still there on the clothesline, waiting for the sun of hope and the wind of love. The voices of the neighbours' children collecting strawberries in my garden are still singing in my ears. I ask someone who is still there to water the flowers which grow on my mother's grave. I ask someone to feed our cat, which is waiting for us at the front door. Etzali Hernandez is a non-binary Latinx, queer, fierce femme poet, coder, DJ No Borders, organiser, and social justice trainer, with many publications to their name. What I Remember Most of Great Britain by Etzali Hernandez. I remember spending one night in a police cell after my asylum claim was refused. I remember being driven 6 hours away from my partner and friends into a place in the middle of nowhere. I remember being locked up in a huge wing in an old hunting estate with other women. I remember guards making fun of those who didn't speak English, or were wearing a hijab, or were visibly queer. I remember being submerged into the darkness and finding it easier to imagine jumping out of the window than pulling myself back to light. I remember seeing people lose themselves in the black hole of a system that does not see us. The next 2 pieces of work I wrote as poetic distillations of 2 separate conversations that took place a number of years ago. One with a young Gazan woman artist, and the other with a young Jewish Israeli man. And sadly, the tragedy and violence of war has yet again shattered the lives of many innocent men, women and children on both sides of the Israeli-Gaza border. This first poem is a tribute to the courage and creativity of a particular young woman and the resilience of the Palestinian people. Girl from Gaza. You ask, how old am I? I am 16 years old, and I was born here in Gaza. I have only ever known Gaza. It is not a place you can easily venture beyond. You ask, how do I survive? I survive through my art. It is a vital part of me and of my people. It frames my hope for the future. You ask what my art says. It reflects the value of life in this place. It gives us a human face. It exalts the ordinariness of our everyday lives. You ask about the raids. We try to live a meaningful life in this ghetto that is Gaza. My art depicts those times of trauma that test our nerve, when the bombs fall on us. You ask how we cope. Of course we are terrified, for there's nowhere to run to, nowhere safe to hide. So we stand firm and pray that tomorrow is a gentle day. You ask how I feel. It hurts deep in my heart. I am a 16-year-old girl who loves to paint, and I am hated by strangers who don't even know who I am. You ask how I feel no bitterness. Bitterness eats away at you from the inside. It's a poisonous worm that crawls into your soul and destroys your spirit. You ask what sustains my survival. Holding on to memories of the good times and daring to hope. I pour these into my art like nourishing nectar. You ask why I seem older than my years. Well, it ages you. Living in a war zone cuts through to the bone of early age, seeing things and hearing things no child should ever know. You ask what my art means to me. My life is my art, is my life. Each brushstroke speaks to the yearning of my people, to be seen for their vibrancy, their passion, and humanity. This next poem reflects the passion and sense of urgency with which this young man yearns for ordinary Israelis and Palestinians to find common ground and understanding as a basis for a sustainable future of coexistence. A young Jewish Israeli. I really do think we're missing a huge opportunity to create a true moment in history. My father is a doctor who has never been preoccupied by wealth. His passion has been tending to the injured or those suffering ill health, all needing his compassion and his skill. He truly loves his country, while his heart aches for all its people to be cherished, those contained within its borders, and the souls who live in exile. Unlike those who blindly hate the other as a terrifying mortal enemy, he holds no fear of difference, since he knows so many others through his work. He's come to understand his patients through the commonality of precious shared humanity, their joys and struggles, loves and losses, grief and pain, achievements and sad failures. Yearning of the heart and soul stirs our need time after time to be accepted and respected for the kind of person that we are, instead of bearing the emotional scar of having blindly been rejected. All this separation and official segregation tears us all to shreds, fuels the fires of hatred and of fear. Sadness sheds an endless, salt-filled tear. I lie awake at night with thoughts of how we could be so much better than we are. These are 21st century times. Should we really be living the lines written so long ago in the Torah of good tribes and bad tribes? Better that we start a testament that searches for the best in all of us. The next poet is David Goldstein, who is a third-generation descendant of Jewish immigrants from Russia and Poland. Part of his work as a counsellor is supporting refugees through Trauma Foundation Southwest. Like myself, David has been writing for many years with the Windmill Hill Poetry Group. Although his poem was written as a response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it also holds relevance to the global plight of refugees. When God Was a Refugee by David Goldstein. Matthew 2:13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. We never hear what happened at the border. Was Mary strip-searched? Was the child taken from them? Were they held in a detention centre? Was there disorder as placard-waving mobs sought to have them sent back? Did traffickers and pimps look on with ill intent? Or were there tents in rows, water, food, some warmth of welcome? Was there sympathy for their plight? Or did they say the massacre was just fake news, that they deserved it being dirty Jews, that his mistake was in not killing more? Did they give honour to the baby Jesus, or, scornful, push them back for lack of visas? These next two poems of mine bring us back to the shores of Britain. Stop the boats. It can start with a word to get the herd on the move. They don't even have to prove that truth lies behind what they're saying, to push the indignant mob into baying for blood to be spilt on the sacrificial altar of illegal crossings. They scream about the flood of thousands upon thousands drowning our shores to justify the crowning of immoral laws that strip these desperate people of humanity, clinging to the insanity of a scheme that's destined to destroy the dream of a safe haven from the horrors of before, replacing them with a cruel, dispassionately slammed shut door, keeping the so-called enemy out. Loudly and proudly they shout, "Stop the boats!" Message in a boat. Suella the Brave is determined to save your fine British nation from foreign invasion by stopping each boat from crossing your moat to let us all roam the shores of your home. Englishmen's homes are their castles. She'll tell you we're all dirty rascals. She trusts not a tear or a smile, convinced they're meant to beguile. She thinks we're all pseudo. She's played that game Cluedo. So who is the culprit, we gingerly ask. Suella declares this an effortless task. It's the migrant in the boat, breaking the law to cross our moat. Suella's convinced she has to be tough because she believes you've all had enough of too many foreigners, living or dead, filling you all with such worry and dread. But Suella, your very own father got here, clinging to hope, with a smile and a tear. Before you hear the final poem, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone whose poems have greatly enriched this spoken word event. Exiled. Her heart aches with grief. Yearning tears at her soul. Goodbyes all too brief leave a deep, gaping hole. Yearning tears at her soul. Exile's not a free choice. Leaves a deep, gaping hole where she once had a voice. Exile's not a free choice. She is wrenched from her land where she once had a voice. She's reduced to parched sand. She is wrenched from her land, so she seeks a new home. She's reduced to parched sand on a beach, all alone. She seeks a new home. Goodbye is all too brief. On a beach, all alone. Her heart aches with grief.